Somebody asked me recently, following question. He's a shliach, and as a shliach, a lot of people come through his house, and occasionally they find things people left behind. A pair of socks, a pair of glasses, a jacket, etc. He's not interested in keeping them. Is he allowed to throw them out? And if not, what's he supposed to do with them? The answer to the shiloh, which is really a few shilohs, is based on the principles that we discussed in previous year, and as a way of as a form of chazara, and to introduce what we're going to continue to discuss in Siftes, let's go through it. There are two types of Avedis. There are two types of lost objects. There's davar she'ein b'siman and davar she'yesh b'siman. Something that does not have a siman, something that does have a siman. A siman means a unique identifying characteristic. A pair of socks, whether they're blue socks or green socks, is not a siman, but socks that have a unique identifying mark, they have a unique custom pattern or a hole in a specific place, or something that's unique to one person, that is a simon. Something that has a simon, there's a name written on it. It's pashut that not allowed to throw it out. There's an obligation of Hashavas Aveda. If you're not able to find the owners, then the din is Yehi Munachat Sheyav Yo. In the previous year, Be'ez Hashem will discuss if there's another, if there are any other options, what you could do with something that where the din is Yehi Munachat Sheyav Yo. But the basic halacha is Yehi Munachat Sheyav Yo. A davar she'ein bei siman, something that has no siman, usually a pair of socks, something that has no siman, a pair of glasses, something that has no siman. Then it depends when it was found. If it was found before Yeush, then the halacha is. I'm sorry. Let's make it easier. Let's start with if it was found after Yeush. Something that has no sim that was found after Yeush. The halacha is Hare Elu Shalai. You can keep it. Something that was found before Yeush. The halacha is the simple reading of the Alter Rebbe in Sif Beis is that you are obligated to pick it up and attempt to do a Shabbos Aveda, even though doing a Shabbos Aveda was something that has no simon. It's very, very difficult. The only way that it could be done is with Eidim, which is obviously unlikely to happen. And certainly we know that in today's day and age, nobody's coming back with Eidim for a pair of socks. Nevertheless, it doesn't change the halacha. The halacha is you're obligated to pick it up, but being that it has no simon and it can't be returned, then the halacha is Yehimunach at Sheyave Eliyahu. That's all if you find it in the street. But over here, in this case, you find it in your house. So even if you find it after Yehush, the problem is that it was already in your house before Yehush. And the halacha is Chatzer Shaladim Kollel Shalei Midaite. So your house was koined for you before Yehush. So, but even though you only found it now, really your house already found it for you before. It came into your reshus before Yehush. But Mela, the halacha is Yehi Munachat Sheyav Eliyahu. And as mentioned previously, Blina there in a future share we will discuss if they're practically and if there are any other eitzes, but that's the basic halacha. In the previous share, we spoke about money. Money is an interesting case that even if it was dropped recently, where if it was something else, we would say that it's a yesh shalei das. Money is something that no matter when it's found, it's called. We can assume that the owner was already miyash, And therefore, the halacha is Harei Elu Shalai. Why? Because Adam Raga Lamashmish B'Ma'isa B'Chol Shah, a person normally checks his money to make sure that it's still there very, very frequently. And therefore, anytime it's found, we can assume that the owner already noticed that it was gone and they were miyash. And now, when you find it, you can keep it because it's a davar shein by simon, something that has no simon, and there was already yesh. Now in Siftas, we're picking up from this discussion that we left off with in Sifches. Anything that is important, like money, and a person is is checking for it constantly, something that a person is constantly making sure it's still there, constantly touching it, feeling it. And as soon as it's gone, within a few minutes, they notice right away that it's gone. As we mentioned in the previous share, the most obvious, simple example of this nowadays is a phone. A cell phone is something that definitely a person is ragal mashmush by b'chol shah, probably even more than money. V'chein kol davar kavod shenaisei al ksefei b'seicheke, or anything heavy that a person carries on their shoulder or in their arms. Which it's safe to assume that if they drop it, they're going to feel it. They're going to notice very quickly that it was dropped. And then you find it. Harihim shaloi. The examples of this in the Mishnah, Nitze Pishtan, Lashen Shalar Gaman. It's hard to find a contemporary example of this, but you can think of something that is heavy, something that a person would be carrying, they would notice that it's gone. So therefore, if it's found in the street and it has no simon, so it has no simon, there was yesh, harei, heim shalai, you can keep it. If you can see that it wasn't placed there, if it looks like it was dropped, if it looks like it was placed there on purpose, first of all, it's not an aveda. Second of all, there is a simon because it was placed somewhere on purpose, and makim simon, the place where it is by itself a simon, as we'll see in Behemshech, as the Alter Rebbe will say soon. Sha'az ein simon b'mkayim v'lei b'minyanim, something that was dropped. So therefore, there is no simon in the makim, in the place where it was found, v'lei b'minyanim, and there is no simon in the amount of how many there are. Simon bigufan, and there's also no simon in the actual object. And it's not possible to give a simon with the way that these objects were tied together. They were tied together in the same way that everyone ties them together. There's a certain way that you tie together. The Mishnah says, strings of fish, anitze pishtan, bundles of flax, bundles of argaman is dyed wool. They're all bundled together in the same specific way that everyone does it. So there's no unique simon over here. And there's no unique amount because everybody carries around this bundle in this amount, or that's how they sell it in the store. So it's sold in packages of 3 and packages of 6. Ve'in sham shum shine. There's nothing unique. V'gam in ro'litin simin b'midasam v'loy b'mishkalam. K'neshein darka mekachal. There's no way to give a simin in it with how much it weighs, how big it is. V'gam ha'ovedin yed v'lekach mesiyash mehem. And therefore, and also the person who lost it does not know how much it weighs or how big it was. It's not something that is sold by size or by weight, and that is something that normally that you would pay attention to, that it would be possible to give a simon in such a thing. So therefore, harei shaloi. Earlier we mentioned a phone. A phone is generally something that yesh by simon, but let's say a phone in a box. So if it's dropped in a public place. So it's b'derech nefila. There's no siman in the makom that it was found. There's no siman in the minyan. There's only one phone in the box, and all phones only come with one phone in a box. You can't give a unique siman in the goof of the phone. It has no phone number that you could call. The packaging is standard packaging, so then there is nothing unique about this phone in a box, and it's something that a person is it's hush of kemais, it's hush of like money. A person, if they're carrying, it's not so common, but let's say a person is carrying a phone in a box and they drop it, so there is no siman, they are miyayish, and therefore the halacha would be pashtos hare ze shaloi umikol makim. Nevertheless, imhu davar sheyesh betvius ayin lebala, something that has a tvius ayin, something that is recognizable. It doesn't have a specific simon, but it's something that its owner would see it, and you would know, that's my talus. That's something that you don't have a simon. You can't explain why. You just know that you use it so much. You know what your talus looks like. You know what your shoes look like, even though they don't have any specific siman. The Gemara talks about, the Mishnah mentions clay anpuria. What the Gemara says, what's clay anpuria? Clay anpuria is something that is old, that has been in use for an extended period of time. Shesavatan ha'ayin, so the eye is literally satiated by from has been become accustomed to what this specific article looks like. Something that its owners will be able to recognize. Even though it has no siman, because there are many talesim that look just like this one. But if it's something that is an old talus that has been in use for a long time, the owner might have a tvius ayin. He might be able to say even without a siman, this is my talus. Then you are obligated to pick it up and announce that you found the Metziah and to do the mitzvah of Shabbos Veda. Very important, Metziah b'makim shetalmidei chachamim metzuin kegayin bebeis hamedrash. Only if you find it in a place where talmidei chachamim are matzui, talmidei chachamim are found, like in a beis medrash. Kistam talmid chacham Eine meshane bediburi ki im bedvar meshamuter lashana is commission is bar be'erchaim simekuf vav. Talmid chacham by default is assumed to not lie or to not deviate from the truth, except in certain things that the Gemara says that it's appropriate for tznius reasons or for derech eretz reasons to not say the full truth when you're asked. Masechta Puria Shviza. The Alter Rebbe doesn't get into the details, so we won't get into it either. But in Erechaim Siman Kuf Vav, the details are there, and the Mechaber also brings in Shulchan Aruch and Chesed Mishpat and similar Samach Beis, and the Gemara about Mציאה and Daf Chav Gimel. In any case, besides for those three specific things, Talmid Chacham is assumed to not lie, to not deviate from the truth. So if he's gonna bring a keli or a talis, and he's gonna say, this is my keli. You have a simon? No, I don't have a simon, but I have to be a sign. I recognize that this is my talis. So it's a person who always says the truth. Then the Talmid Chacham is believed, and you can give it to him. But a person who is not a Talmid Chacham, in other words, they're not so particular about always saying the truth and the whole truth, nothing but the truth, by other things, so not necessarily going to believe them either. When they come to say, this is mine, but to be a sign, you have a simon? No, I don't have a simon, but I think it's mine. That's not good enough. To summarize, something that is old, that is a possibility that a Talmud Chacham could recognize it with Tviyas Ayin. If it's found in a place where Talmud Chachamim are Metzuin, like in a base medrash, if you find it in the street, if you find it, we're going to say later, even if you find it in Shul, who comes to Shul? Everybody comes to Shul. No, Talmud Chachamim. You don't have to return. Find it in a base medrash, a place where Talmud Chacham, so a Mistama fell here from a Talmud Chacham, then there is a chiyuv lehachers. If you find it somewhere else, there is no chiyuv lehachers. That's what the Alter Rebbe says, mashmos, clear mashmos of the Alter Rebbe. Im Metziah b'makam shel Talmid Chacham Metziah. This is also how the Sma Paskins beferish and Simmer Shal Beis Sifkat and Mam Gimel. The Seif is a little bit iffy on this, but this is how the Sma and the Alter Rebbe are saying beferish. And it has to be what type of Talmud Chacham? Talmud Chacham who always says the truth, except for certain things that the Gemara says it's appropriate to not say the full truth about. Now, the Mechaber in Shulchan Aruch in Simmer Shamach Beis Chaf Aleph also adds that it also has to be a Talmud Chacham who's makbid al chalukay shelo yireh at tfiras hamegoyis. He's makbid on his chaluk. Chaluk is an outer garment. That Talmud Chacham who is makbid that the stitches that don't look nice, they should not be seen. The Alter Rebbe does not bring this nekuda because he's paskening like the Sma over there in Sivkatan Memhei, and he explains it. The Shach over there says that everything that the Sma writes is Divrei Sma migum gamim shalei bediktu klal, but in the Prisha, the Sma is explained by Hilchos very, very clearly why we don't pasken this way. The Gemara doesn't say it over there in Bav Mציאה. The Gemara says it. So the Chabad didn't make it up. He got it from a different Gemara. But there's a reason why it's not negay over here. The definition of Talmud Chacham for this is only Talmud Chacham who does not deviate from the truth, except for those things where it is appropriate to deviate from the truth. But 99% of the time, he speaks only the truth. Continues the Alter Rebbe, v'yesh lehistapik b'zman hazeh im yesh l'talmid chacham chazak hazu. Now this is all in the times of the Gemara. In the times of the Gemara, there were many dinim that apply to specifically to Talmidei Chacham. The din is like Talmid Chacham. Talmid Chacham is like this. Talmid Chacham is like this. So, with taxes, with chayrim, with certain inyanim. Nowadays, we say we don't have a din of Talmid Chacham. Generally, certain things we find that they apply to Talmid Chacham, and the place can say beferish that any person could consider themselves a Talmid Chacham le'inyan zeh if they want to, or it does apply to Talmid Chacham. So the Smeh Cheshemishpat is mistapik if for this din we say the din of a Talmid Chacham even b'zman hazeh. And Bashkafer Rishayna, it seems like this is what the Alter Rebbe is saying. We're just copying over the Smeh. The Smeh is Safik. The truth is that there are two ways to read the Alter Rebbe. You can read that is going on what he said previously, just before, that Talmid Chacham bevadai lo yedaber kazav, which is the same suffix of the Smeh. In the times of the Gemara, we said a Talmid Chacham is a chazaka that bevadei lo yedaber kazav, and the Smeh is mistapik if we say the same thing about a Talmid Chacham nowadays, and that's what the Alter Rebbe is saying. Or you could maybe say that the Alter Rebbe is saying is going on what it said in the beginning of this paragraph, that stam Talmid Chacham ein meshana b'diburi. This is what the Ramah writes over there in Siman Shin Samach Beis. Stam Talmid Chacham has a chazaka that is not meshana b'diburi. What's the difference? That means the Alter Rebbe is saying really a different suffix than the Smeh. The Smeh is mistapik if Talmid Chacham has a chazaka that he's not going to lie. Sorry, that if a Talmid Chacham who doesn't lie has the same din that you can be machzer aveda to him al pi tviyos ayin. According to the second potential reading of the Alter Rebbe, The Alter Rebbe is questioning whether a Stam Talmid Chacham has this chazaka that he doesn't lie. But if we know beferish that he doesn't lie, after for sure we could say we're master Aveda to him for it to be a sign. Now, the Pashto reading of the Alter Rebbe is like the first way, that is saying the same suffix as the Smeh, and the V'yesh Leistapik is going on what it said just before, that bevade leidaber kazav. V'yesh Leistapik if Talmid Chacham chazak kazu that bevade leidaber kazav. However, in the Seif Piskacheshen, Hilchos Aveda, Parakeh, Ar Lamed Vav, it seems like he understood the Alter Rebbe like the second way we said, that he's going on, the suffix is going on what it said in the beginning of the paragraph, that the suffix is if a Talmid Chacham has a Stam Talmid Chacham has a chazaka that he doesn't lie, and the Mela, the Nafkamina, like we said earlier, is that if we know for a fact that he doesn't lie, then we can return to him in Aveda based on Tvius Ayin. Why would he make this diuk in the Alter Rebbe? But Pashtus, because the Alter Rebbe changes it from the lashon of the Smeh. The Smeh writes, "Tzarichin b'zman hazeh gam ken yeshel Talmid Chacham din zeh." The Alter Rebbe writes, "Yeshel sapik b'zman hazeh yeshel Talmid Chacham chazaka zu." Why does he use the word chazaka? Maybe that's where he's medayik from. In any case, we'll leave it. We'll leave it open. But Bepashtas, when he's the simple reading is that the Alter Rebbe is saying the same thing as the Smeh, and the diuk of why it changes the lashon from din to chazaka is not necessarily strong enough to, it doesn't outweigh the Pashta simple reading of the Alter Rebbe. One more ha'ara that is important to mention is that all of this, like we said, is talking about a Talmid Chacham, somebody, a regular person who's not a Talmid Chacham, and we have a suffix of Bechlal, anyone has a din of a Talmid Chacham nowadays, and Yesh Makom Lemer that no one is considered a Talmid Chacham. Definitely someone who have a suffix if they're a Talmid Chacham for sure. Then it's that they're not considered a Talmid Chacham, so they don't get back in Aveda al Pi Tviyus Ayin. In Yered Deya, for certain inyanim, Basar Shenasalam and Ayin, and food that was left in the care of a guy, there's also a din of Tviyus Ayin in Yered Deya in Siman Samach Gimel and in Siman Kufit Ches, and over there the halacha is that everyone is believed b'Tviyus Ayin. So food that had a cheskas kashrus that you recognize. Again, Tviyus Ayin has to be shesavata ayin, that you spent enough time with it to be able to recognize it, without any simonim. Every person is believed to say Tviyus Ayin, I recognize that this is the same food, that it wasn't switched by birds, or in Siman Samach Gimel, or by goyim, and in Siman Kufit Ches, whatever the case is. There's an interesting taz in Siman Samach Gimel where he says, what's the difference? Over here is the Siddhar over there is the Siddhar Rabbonim. All the Acharin of the Pri Chodesh and the Shach, Pri Megadim, ask what I mean. We find the same thing with Tviyus Ayin by Yisra Heter, even by Siddhar Raisa. And the Nekutas HaKesef explains just a very logical approach, that there's Mamin and there's Isser. Mamin is a much bigger taiva, and people bichlal, it's an iser kal in a lot of people's eyes, so a person is more inclined to lie, or to at least fudge the truth when it comes to money, especially someone else's money. When it comes to an iser, if you're lying, you're not fooling anyone, you're only fooling yourself, and you're going to end up eating treif because you said it was Tviyus Ayin, you recognize it Tviyus Ayin. It's not. The people are more careful with Yisurim than with Mammon. So, just important to know that for inyanim of Isser, everyone is believed b'Tviyus Ayin. Inyanim of Mammon, only Talmid Chacham, and we have a suffix of Bechlal, we have the din of Talmid Chacham nowadays. אבל המיtzah mois mefuzaris bebeis hamedrash, harei him shaloi, shein b'matbea tiyasayin. Someone who finds money, mefuzaris, even bebeis hamedrash, bebeis hamedrash is the place that mitzuyin but talmidei chachamim. You might think, oh, I have to pick up the money now and find out if there are any talmidei chachamim over here who recognize this money b'tviyasayin. No, harei him shaloi, shein b'matbea tiyasayin. It's not tiyasayin in a coin. Vein tzarich leimar imatz bebeis haknesses. Needless to say, if you find it in a beis haknesses, that you can keep it. Basic Knesset is not a place where Talmidei Chacham, it's a place where Talmidei Chacham are Metzuyin. It's also a place where there are a lot more people who are not Talmidei Chacham are Metzuyin. Ve'in tzarech litin l'tzedakah, commission is where Erechaim Siman Kuf Nadalit, and you don't need to give it to tzedakah, as is explained in Erechaim in Siman Kuf Nadalit. Rather, you can keep it. What does it mean? Ein tzarech litin l'tzedakah. So we don't have the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch Siman Kuf Nadalit. However, it seems what the Alter Rebbe is referring to is a very famous Magen Avraham in Siman Kuf Nadalit, and Erechaim Sivkot and Chav Gimel. The Magen Avraham brings b'shem the Aguda that somebody who finds something in the chutzner of a Beis HaKnesses, the Pri Megadim over there at Lav Dafka the chutzner, even the Beis HaKnesses itself, he's Zaycha, he can keep it. What's a Chiddush? Chiddush is, we mentioned at the beginning of the year, it's the din of Chatzer Shaladam, Kollel Shaloi Midaita. So, should say, Lechaira, that you find something in Shul, it belongs to the Shul. Because the Chatzar of the Shul is Kaina for the Shul. But the truth is, this is not the case for two reasons. First of all, Chatzar Shaladam Kollel Shaloi Midaita is only by Chatzar HaMishtamaris. A Shul, but there is Chatzar She'ena Mishtamaris, people are coming and going, and there is things appear and disappear. It's a real Chatzar She'ena Mishtamaris. But obviously that's not the Chiddush of the Aguda. Even if it's a Chatzar HaMishtamaris, the Aguda says, the Magen Avraham brings it, and Mishnah Berurah also passing this way, that why is the Chatzar of the Shul not Kaina for the Shul? Because Chatzar, the Gemara tells us, is, we learn at the din of Chatzar Mishum Yad, Be'ein Yad LaHektish. Basically, Hektish is not Kaina through Kinyan Chatzar. So therefore, if you find something in a Shul, Ein Yad LaHektish, and you can keep it. Now, there's a big arichos on this Nakuda in Achreinim, in over there in Erechaim, Rabbi Kiva and others, and in Cheshem Mishpat, and Semarish, and Ktsas, and Nesivis. Kolpanim, again, Badar Klal, a Shul is Chatzar She'ena Mishtamaris, so anyway, it's not so nageh. But even if it is, this is how the Magen Avraham paskins, this is how the Mishnah Berurah paskins, this seems to be what the Alter Rebbe is saying as well. And that's what the halacha is. This is all by a shul that was bought with, that is hektish, that is owned by funds from tzedakah, that was purchased through funds from tzedakah. Pesachim discuss, Pesachation and Shavuos Hanhagas discuss what about a privately owned shul. Over there with Pashtas, there would be a different din. There's no ein yad lahektish, it's owned by a private person. And it would be Chatzer Shaladam Kollel Shaloi Midaita. But in general, in a regular shul that's not privately owned, that is hektish, halacha is ein yad lahektish, and therefore something that has no siman and it was found after Yeush, the halacha is harei elu shalei. And with that, we will conclude for today.